The story opens with a brutal irony. Charlie White, the man Soul's underworld calls the Reaper, is collapsed in prayer-like devastation at a freshly turned grave, his $1,000 suit stained with cemetery mud. The hook establishes immediate emotional conflict by revealing that while Charlie believes his failure to protect Maria has destroyed him, she is actually standing 40 yards away, concealed behind the shadow of a willow tree, watching every shudder of his grief. The opening image is visceral, a king reduced to rubble. Charlie's hands, which have orchestrated shipments worth millions and signed death warrants without hesitation, now clasp his face to hide tears that won't stop falling. The high-end watch on his wrist catches the gray morning light, a symbol of power that means nothing in this moment. He kneels on ground that should never have held her, whispering apologies to marble and earth. Behind him, hidden by branches that sway like funeral veils, Maria stands perfectly still. Her breath creates small clouds in the cold air. She wears simple clothes, a light blouse, dark cardigan, practical jeans, the wardrobe of someone who has shed her former identity. Her expression is haunted but laser-focused, eyes tracking every movement of the man who doesn't know she exists anymore. Her fingers grip the rough bark of the tree, steadying herself against the urge to run to him, to end his suffering. But she can't. Not yet. The tension builds as the narrative reveals what Charlie doesn't know. 50 feet beneath Seoul, in a luxury penthouse, Kenji and Hannah raise champagne glasses in victory. They believe Maria is rotting in silk-lined darkness while Charlie's empire crumbles from grief-induced negligence. They toast to shipping routes they plan to steal, to syndicate votes they'll manipulate, to a throne they think is already theirs. But Maria heard them. When they thought she was dying on cold morgue steel, her heart slowed by a medical cocktail that mimicked death so perfectly even the coroner was fooled, she heard Hannah laugh. She heard Kenji rehearse the eulogy he'd deliver with manufactured tears. She lay there, barely breathing, and memorized every word of their betrayal. Now, as Charlie breaks apart at her grave, Maria makes a choice. She will stay dead. She will become the ghost that haunts her killers from the shadows. And when the time is right, she will walk back into the light, not as a victim, but as a queen returning to claim her throne. The camera pulls back slowly, Charlie weeping over a lie carved in granite. Maria watching from the darkness, already planning her resurrection. And somewhere in the city, traitors celebrating a murder they haven't yet paid for. Subscribe to see how this unfolds and comment where you're watching from. I will love to say hello to you just to know how far our story is going. The private cemetery sits on the edge of New York's Westchester County, surrounded by iron gates and ancient oak trees that have witnessed a century of buried secrets. Charlie White's knees sink into soil still soft from the gravedigger's work 3 days earlier. Rain from the previous night has turned the ground into something between earth and mud, and it seeps through the fabric of his Tom Ford trousers, staining them with darkness that matches what's consuming him from the inside. He doesn't care about the suit. Doesn't care that his driver is waiting by the black Mercedes at the gate, pretending not to watch his boss fall apart. Doesn't care that showing this kind of vulnerability could cost him everything he's built over 15 years of calculated violence and strategic alliances. The headstone before him reads, "Maria White, beloved wife, rest in peace," and those words are a knife twisting in his chest with every breath. Charlie made a vow when he married her 5 years ago. He swore on everything sacred and profane that his world, the shipments of contraband that moved through 6 ports, the money laundering operations that filtered through a dozen legitimate businesses, the enforcement crews that kept order in neighborhoods the police had abandoned, would never touch her. She would live in the light while he worked in the shadows. She would have art gallery openings and charity galas and coffee with friends who had no idea their husbands' pharmaceutical companies were fronts for his distribution network. He kept that vow for 4 years and 11 months. Then someone broke it for him. The official story is a home invasion gone wrong. 2 masked men. A struggle. Maria fighting back because she was stronger than anyone gave her credit for, strong enough to leave defensive wounds on her attackers before they fled. The police found her in the master bedroom, poisoned by a substance the coroner said was exotic, expensive, and absolutely lethal. But Charlie knows better. In his line of work, there are no coincidences, no random acts of violence. Someone wanted her dead, wanted him broken, wanted to send a message that even the Reaper's protection had limits. He spent 72 sleepless hours reviewing security footage, interrogating his own people, calling in favors from contacts in law enforcement who owe him their careers. Nothing. Whoever did this was a ghost, and they left him with a corpse and a crater where his heart used to be. "I'm sorry," he whispers to the headstone, his voice cracking on the second word. I'm so goddamn sorry, Maria. I promised you'd be safe. I promised. His fingers trace the engraved letters of her name. The marble is cold, expensive, imported from Italy because only the best would do for her final resting place. It means nothing. All his money, all his power, all the fear he's cultivated in men who would sell their souls for a fraction of his influence. None of it could save the one person who mattered. Behind him, 50 yards away, concealed by the sweeping branches of a willow tree that touches the ground like a curtain, Maria watches her husband destroy himself with grief that's entirely unnecessary. Her hand covers her mouth to keep any sound from escaping. Every sob that racks Charlie's body sends a fresh wave of pain through her chest, but she cannot reveal herself. Not yet. Not until she understands exactly who tried to kill her and why. The cold autumn air bites through her thin cardigan. She's been standing here for 40 minutes, waiting for him to arrive, knowing he would come alone because grief is something men like Charlie only show in absolute privacy. She watches him collapse further, his forehead now pressed against the top of the headstone, his shoulders shaking with a kind of tears that come from a place beyond words. 3 days ago, she was supposed to die. The tea Hannah brought her, brewed from leaves Maria later learned were laced with a cardiac arrest-inducing toxin, should have stopped her heart permanently. But the doctor Charlie kept on retainer for the family, a man named Vincent Reeves who owed Charlie his freedom after a malpractice suit disappeared, had been Maria's secret ally for the past 6 months. When Maria first suspected something was wrong, when she noticed Hannah and Kenji exchanging looks that lasted too long and whispers that stopped the moment she entered a room, she went to Vincent. Together they devised a protocol, a counteragent she took daily that would neutralize most poisons, and an emergency injection she kept hidden in her bedroom that would slow her heart to near-death levels if she ever ingested something the counteragent couldn't handle. She used that injection 4 minutes after drinking Hannah's tea. By the time the ambulance arrived, her pulse was undetectable. By the time they reached the hospital, she was clinically dead. Vincent signed the death certificate himself, then smuggled her body out through a morgue exit that security cameras mysteriously failed to record. But before he moved her, while she lay on that steel table with her heartbeat so slow a stethoscope couldn't find it, she heard them. Hannah and Kenji stood just outside the examination room, their voices carrying through the thin walls, drunk on victory. 3 days, Kenji had said, his tone celebratory. We give him 3 days to fall apart, then we move on the shipping contracts. He'll be too broken to notice until it's too late. Hannah laughed, a sound that made Maria's barely beating heart clench with fury. Did you see his face when they told him? I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Charlie White, brought to his knees by a dead wife, Kenji continued. Poetic, really. All that power, all that fear he generates, and he couldn't protect the one thing that mattered. By the time he realizes we've taken everything, we'll own half his operations. To new beginnings, Hannah toasted with something. Maria heard the clink of glasses. To the king's fall, Kenji agreed. Maria memorized every word, every inflection, every second of their celebration over her supposedly dead body. She let Vincent move her to a private location, a safe house in upstate New York that only he knew about. She recovered slowly, forcing her heart back to normal rhythms, planning her next move with the clarity that comes from being murdered and surviving to tell about it. Now she watches Charlie suffer for a crime that didn't succeed, and it takes every ounce of her willpower not to run to him. But revealing herself too soon would waste the only advantage she has. The world believes she's dead, which means her enemies have shown their faces, revealed their plans, and dropped their guards. Charlie finally stands, his legs unsteady. He pulls a handkerchief from his pocket, monogrammed, a gift from her last Christmas, and wipes his face roughly, as if angry at his own tears. He says something else to the grave, too quiet for Maria to hear, then turns and walks back toward the Mercedes, each step heavy with the weight of failure. Maria waits until the car disappears down the tree-lined drive before she moves. Her legs are stiff from standing motionless for so long, and her heart, her traitorous, still recovering heart, aches with the need to end his pain. But not yet. She has work to do first. Ghosts, after all, have certain advantages the living don't. Maria doesn't leave the cemetery immediately. She moves through the grounds like a shadow, staying close to the tree line, memorizing the layout. The gates, the walls, the security cameras that sweep in predictable patterns. Everything is information. Everything is a potential weapon. The willow tree has become her vantage point, her theater seat to Charlie's grief. She's been coming here every morning since her death, watching him arrive at dawn when the world is still dark and he can hide his breaking in the privacy of early hours. Each visit destroys him a little more, and each visit strengthens her resolve to make her killers pay in ways they haven't imagined yet. But today, watching him collapse completely, something inside her shifted. The plan she's been constructing in the safe house, the careful strategy of revenge and revelation, suddenly feels too slow. Charlie is disintegrating, and while part of her knows his pain will make the eventual reunion more powerful, another part, the part that fell in love with him despite knowing exactly what he was, can't stand to watch him suffer much longer. She thinks back to the morgue, to the moment her consciousness started returning, and the first thing she heard was laughter. Hannah's voice, bright with victory, discussing Charlie's grief like it was a commodity they could exploit. The memory still burns with fresh rage. Maria had known Hannah for 3 years, ever since Charlie brought her into the organization to handle the legitimate business fronts. She was brilliant with numbers, charming with clients, and seemingly loyal to a fault. They'd had lunch together dozens of times, shared confidences about the difficulty of loving dangerous men, even gone shopping together for the charity gala where Maria wore the silver bracelet that Charlie loved. Kenji had been in Charlie's inner circle even longer, nearly a decade. He ran the shipping operations, coordinated with port authorities who looked the other way for the right price, and sat at Charlie's right hand during strategy meetings. Charlie called him brother. Trusted him with secrets that could bring down the entire empire. Both of them had smiled at her funeral, playing their parts perfectly while planning to carve up Charlie's territory like a Thanksgiving turkey. The toxin they used was called Nightshade 7, according to Vincent. A custom-designed poison that mimicked natural cardiac arrest, nearly impossible to detect in autopsy unless you knew exactly what to look for. Expensive enough that only serious players could acquire it. Traceable, if you had the right connections. Maria has those connections now. Vincent introduced her to his network. Doctors, chemists, and medical examiners who exist in the gray space between legal and lethal. One of them identified the supplier, a pharmaceutical black market dealer who operates out of a warehouse in Newark. Maria paid him a visit 2 days ago, wearing a wig and sunglasses, offering double whatever Kenji and Hannah paid for information. Money, it turns out, is more loyal than people. The dealer confirmed the purchase, provided security footage of Kenji making the transaction, and even threw in the detail that Hannah had been asking about dosages for weeks before the actual buy. They'd been planning this for months, maybe longer, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. That moment came when Charlie had to travel to Los Angeles for a week to handle a dispute between rival factions threatening to turn violent. He'd asked Maria to come with him, but she declined, saying she had a gallery opening to attend. In retrospect, she wonders if they'd been waiting for exactly that kind of opportunity, a window where Charlie would be far enough away that he couldn't interfere but close enough to feel the maximum impact when he rushed home to find her dead. They'd almost succeeded. If not for Vincent, if not for the paranoia that made Maria start taking precautions months earlier, she would be actually dead instead of just legally deceased. Maria pulls her cardigan tighter against the morning chill. The sun is rising properly now, painting the cemetery in shades of gold and amber that seem obscene given the purpose of this place. She should leave before the groundskeeper arrives, before anyone sees a woman who's supposed to be buried here walking among the graves. But she lingers, staring at her own headstone from a distance. Maria White, beloved wife, rest in peace. The lies we tell on marble. She's not resting. She's not at peace. She's a loaded gun with the safety off, and Kenji and Hannah are about to discover what it means to kill someone who refuses to stay dead. Her phone vibrates in her pocket. A burner cell, untraceable, used only for communication with Vincent. She checks the message. Package delivered. He'll find it tonight. Maria smiles for the first time in days. The package is her silver bracelet, the one Charlie loved to see her wear, the one that should be buried with her body. Vincent retrieved it from the coffin during the closed casket viewing, another detail they'd controlled, claiming the trauma to her body was too severe for an open casket when really they needed to hide the fact that the body wasn't hers at all. A Jane Doe from the city morgue, similar enough in build and appearance that a grieving husband wouldn't look too closely at a closed coffin. Tonight, Charlie will find that bracelet on his nightstand, exactly where Maria used to leave it every evening. And he'll begin to understand that something impossible is happening. Maria takes one last look at the grave, at the flowers Charlie brought that are already wilting in the autumn air, and then she disappears into the tree line. The willow branches sweep closed behind her like a stage curtain falling. The performance has only just begun. 60 stories above Manhattan, in a penthouse office with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlook Central Park, Kenji Nakamura pours Japanese whiskey into crystal glasses that cost more than most people's monthly rent. The amber liquid catches the afternoon light, glowing like liquid gold. Hannah Cross takes her glass with a smile that belongs to someone who's just won a lottery they rigged. To opportunity, Kenji says, raising his glass. To timing, Hannah adds, clinking hers against his. They drink, and the whiskey burns in the best possible way. The burn of victory, of plans executed flawlessly, of a future that's suddenly wide open and theirs for the taking. The office belongs to one of the shell corporations they'd set up 6 months ago, buried under layers of LLC paperwork and offshore accounts that would take forensic accountants years to unravel. Charlie doesn't know it exists. Charlie doesn't know a lot of things anymore, too blinded by grief to notice the infrastructure of his own betrayal being built right under his nose.
Have you seen him?
Hannah asks, settling into the leather chair across from Kenji's desk. She's wearing a black dress, appropriately mourning, though the designer label and diamond earrings somewhat undercut the grieving colleague aesthetic. This morning, Kenji confirms. At the cemetery. He looked like death himself. Poetic. I almost felt bad. Kenji swirls his whiskey, watching it coat the inside of the glass. Almost. Then I remembered how he's kept us on leashes for years, dangling promotions and real power just out of reach, making us prove ourselves over and over while he sits on his throne counting money. Hannah nods. He married that sweet little artist and thought she made him human. Thought having someone pure in his life would balance out the blood on his hands. It just made him sentimental. Weak. The weak don't survive in this business. No, Hannah agrees. They don't. She pulls out a tablet, swipes through screens of data. The Port Newark operation is ours. I moved the shipping manifests through our alternative channels yesterday. By the time Charlie notices the revenue drop, we'll have redirected 3 months' worth of containers. Kenji leans forward, interested. And the distributors? 12 of them have already agreed to work with us directly. They're tired of Charlie's cut. We're offering them better margins, faster turnaround, and protection that doesn't come with his particular brand of paranoia. She smiles. Turns out loyalty is negotiable when you're offering people more money. What about the ones who said no? They'll come around. Or they'll become examples. Hannah's voice doesn't change, still light and conversational, as if she's discussing lunch options instead of potential murder. Kenji walks to the window, looking out over the city. From this height, everything looks manageable, controllable. The people below are ants, the cars are toys, and the whole sprawling metropolis is just a game board waiting for players smart enough to make the right moves. We need to move on the political connections next, he says. Charlie's got judges, city councilmen, even a few state senators in his pocket. Those relationships took years to build. Already working on it, Hannah assures him. I've been having very sympathetic conversations with them about Charlie's mental state, his capacity to continue business as usual. Grief can make people unstable, unpredictable. They're nervous. A few more weeks of watching him fall apart, and they'll be ready to transfer their allegiance to someone more composed. You're good at this. I've been watching Charlie play the game for 3 years. Taking notes. Learning. He's brilliant, I'll give him that, but he's also predictable. He thinks loyalty can be bought with money and fear. He doesn't understand that real loyalty, the kind that lasts, requires respect. And you can't respect someone who treats you like an employee when you're capable of being a partner. Kenji turns back from the window. How long before we can move on the offshore accounts? 2 months, maybe 3. Those are locked tighter, and will need his access codes. But I'm working on it. Hannah's smile turns sly. Charlie's secretary is very helpful when you're the grieving friend checking in on him. She's given me access to his calendar, his passwords for the office network, even his private phone log. Everything we need is within reach. And if he figures it out before we're ready? Hannah shrugs, unconcerned. Then we accelerate. We have enough now to disappear if we need to, start over somewhere Charlie's reach doesn't extend. But I don't think we'll need to. Look at him, he's a ghost of himself. By the time he pulls his head out of his grief long enough to notice what we've done, it'll be too late to stop us. Kenji pours himself another whiskey, this one a celebration of specific victories rather than general opportunity. To Maria White, he says, raising his glass. The woman who gave us an empire by having the decency to die. Hannah laughs, raising her own glass. To Maria. May she rest in peace while we tear her husband's world apart. They drink again, and this time the burn is pure pleasure. Outside the window, the sun is setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The city lights are starting to flicker on, millions of them, each one a small piece of the vast machine that Charlie used to control. Used to. Hannah checks her watch. I should get going. I'm having dinner with Charlie's lawyer tonight. He's handling the estate, and I want to make sure I'm positioned as the sympathetic ear if Charlie starts making irrational decisions about asset distribution. You're thinking long-term. Always. She stands, smooths her dress. This isn't a sprint, Kenji. It's a marathon. We take everything piece by piece, so carefully that Charlie doesn't realize he's bleeding until he's empty. What about the others in his organization? His enforcement crews, his lieutenants. Most of them are mercenaries at heart. They'll follow whoever's signing the checks and giving them orders. A few, the ones who are actually loyal to Charlie personally, will need to handle differently. But that's what severance packages are for. Hannah's smile is cold. The permanent kind. Kenji walks her to the elevator, and they ride down together in silence, both lost in their own thoughts of conquest and calculation. When they reach the lobby, Hannah pauses. Do you ever think about what Maria would say if she knew? She asks suddenly. Kenji considers the question. She'd probably be horrified. She was always so naive, so convinced that Charlie was protecting her from the ugly parts of his business. She had no idea how deep the ugliness went, how many people had to die or disappear for her to live in her art gallery fantasy world. She was a liability, Hannah says firmly. A weakness Charlie couldn't afford. We did him a favor, really. Now he can focus on what matters. Except he's falling apart instead of focusing. He'll recover, Hannah says with confidence that seems misplaced. Or he won't. Either way, we win. The elevator doors open, and Hannah steps out into the marble lobby, her heels clicking against the floor with the rhythm of someone who knows exactly where they're going and how they're getting there. Kenji watches her leave, then returns to his office, to his whiskey, to his spreadsheets of stolen revenue and hijacked operations. What neither of them knows, what they can't possibly imagine, is that 60 stories below them, in a parking garage, Maria sits in a nondescript sedan watching the building's exit on a tablet that's tapped into the security camera feed. She watches Hannah emerge, watches her climb into her BMW, watches her drive away into the evening traffic. Maria makes a note on her phone. Dinner with Charlie's lawyer, she types. Then she starts the engine and follows at a careful distance, just another set of headlights in the river of Manhattan traffic. Ghosts, after all, can be anywhere. And Maria is learning to haunt with precision. Charlie's penthouse apartment occupies the top floor of a building in Tribeca, all exposed brick and steel beams and windows that cost more to clean than most people earn in a month. He enters through the private elevator, the kind that requires a keycard and retinal scan, security measures that feel increasingly pointless. All his protection, all his paranoia, and someone still managed to kill Maria in their own home. The apartment is exactly as he left it this morning. Dark, silent, and suffocating. He doesn't turn on the lights. Doesn't need to. He's walked these rooms in darkness enough times to navigate by memory, past the living room with its leather furniture Maria chose, past the kitchen where she used to make coffee every morning while humming songs she'd heard on the radio, past the home office where he'd handle business while she painted in the studio down the hall. He heads straight for the bedroom, loosening his tie as he walks, wanting nothing more than to collapse into unconsciousness and escape the weight of being awake. The funeral is tomorrow. The thought of it makes his chest constrict. He'll have to stand in front of everyone, his people, her friends, the various players in the criminal ecosystem he's built, and pretend to be composed while they lower an empty coffin into the ground. Empty because he couldn't bear to see her one last time. Closed casket, at Vincent's recommendation. The trauma to her body was too severe, Vincent had said, his voice heavy with professional sympathy. Better to remember her as she was. Charlie was too broken to argue. Now he wonders if that was a mistake, if he should have demanded to see her, to confirm with his own eyes that she was really gone. But what difference would it make? Dead is dead, whether witnessed or not. He reaches the bedroom and finally flicks on the light, expecting the same scene he's faced every night since her death. The bed they shared, too large for one person, the closet still full of her clothes that he can't bring himself to touch, the vanity where she did her makeup, products still arranged exactly as she left them. But tonight, something is different. On his nightstand, catching the light like a small beacon, is Maria's silver bracelet. Charlie freezes. His hand is still on the light switch, his body suddenly rigid with a fear that has nothing to do with physical danger and everything to do with the impossible. The bracelet is unmistakable, delicate silver links with a small charm in the shape of an artist's palette, a gift he gave her on their first anniversary. She wore it almost every day, loved it enough that he'd made sure it was buried with her. Made sure. He'd checked with the funeral director himself, had provided a list of items to be placed in the coffin. Her bracelet, her wedding ring, a photo of them together from their honeymoon in Santorini. The director had confirmed everything was in place before they sealed the casket. So how is it here, on his nightstand, in the exact spot where Maria used to leave it every night before bed? Charlie's rational mind offers explanations. He forgot to give it to the funeral director, he put it here himself in a grief-induced fugue state. It's a different bracelet that just looks identical. But his instinct, the same instinct that's kept him alive in a business where most people don't make it past 30, knows better. Something is very wrong. Or very right. He can't tell which. He approaches the nightstand like it might explode, each step measured and careful. Picks up the bracelet with hands that have started trembling. It's real. Solid. The weight of it is familiar, the catch mechanism slightly loose from years of use. This isn't a replica. This is her bracelet, the one that should be 6 feet underground. Charlie sits on the edge of the bed, cradling the bracelet in both hands, his mind racing through possibilities that all sound insane. Grave robbery, but who would know to break into that specific grave, and why would they return a stolen item to him? A sick joke by one of his enemies, but how would they have accessed his apartment, bypassed security that's designed to keep out professional killers? He pulls out his phone with shaking hands and calls his head of security, a former Marine named Wilson who's been with him for 8 years. Sir. Wilson answers on the first ring. My apartment. Has anyone accessed it in the last 12 hours? No, sir. The logs show only you entering and exiting. No other key cards activated, no unauthorized entries detected. Check the cameras. Already running it. Pause. Clean, sir. No one else in the building has accessed your floor since you left this morning. Charlie ends the call without thanking him, staring at the bracelet in his palm. If no one entered the apartment, if security shows nothing unusual, then either his system has been compromised by someone so skilled they can bypass every safeguard he's installed, or what? Maria's ghost delivered it? He laughs, a sound without humor. He doesn't believe in ghosts. Believes in blood and money and consequences, in the tangible mechanics of power and fear. Ghosts are for people who need explanations for things they don't understand. Charlie understands everything in his world because he's built it with his own hands, every piece placed with intention. Except this. He doesn't understand this. He's still holding the bracelet when his phone vibrates with a notification. Security system alert. He opens the app that monitors every camera, sensor, and access point in his various properties. The alert is from his home office, the one down the hall from where he's sitting. Door accessed. Private code M7793. Charlie's blood turns to ice. M7793 was Maria's personal code, the one she used to access his office when she needed him during business calls, the one that should have been deactivated the moment she died. He disabled it himself 3 days ago, watching through blurred vision as he deleted her access from every system. Except apparently it's still active. And someone just used it. He stands slowly, the bracelet still clutched in his left hand, his right hand reaching for the gun he keeps in his nightstand drawer. The weapon is familiar weight, cold metal that's never failed him. He chambers around quietly, then moves toward the hallway with the smooth efficiency of someone who's done this kind of thing before. The office door is 10 feet away. It's closed, but there's light coming from underneath it, the warm glow of his desk lamp. He didn't turn it on this morning. Hasn't been in the office since the day before Maria died. Charlie approaches from the side, minimizing his silhouette, and slowly turns the handle. The door swings open on well-oiled hinges, revealing his office exactly as he left it. Desk covered in papers, leather chair, walls lined with books that are more for show than reading. Except on his desk, positioned directly in the center where he couldn't possibly miss it, is an envelope. Heavy cream paper, expensive, the kind Maria used for personal correspondence. His name is written on it in handwriting he'd recognize anywhere, even though he knows it's impossible. It's Maria's handwriting. Perfect cursive, the M in his name with the distinctive flourish she always added. Charlie checks the room with professional thoroughness. Closet, corners, behind furniture, anywhere a person could hide.
Empty.
He's alone with an envelope that shouldn't exist, written by a hand that should be cold and still. He picks up the envelope with the kind of reverence people reserve for holy relics or unexploded bombs. Turns it over. No seal, just a simple fold. Inside is a single card, the same cream paper, with a message written in that impossible handwriting. Midnight. The old iron mill on Randall's Island. Come alone. Tell no one. I need you to trust me one more time. Charlie reads it 3 times, 4, 5. The words don't change. The handwriting doesn't morph into something explainable. He's holding what appears to be a message from his dead wife, asking him to meet her at a location they used to visit together, back before the marriage, when their relationship was new and dangerous and required secrecy. The iron mill is abandoned, has been for 20 years, a rusting monument to manufacturing jobs that fled overseas. It's also private, invisible from the road, the kind of place where transactions that can't be witnessed in public used to happen. Charlie hasn't been there in 4 years, not since he and Maria spent an evening there watching the sunset over the East River, back when she didn't know the full extent of what he did for a living. This is a trap. Has to be. Someone knows about the mill, knows Maria's handwriting well enough to forge it, knows about her access code and her bracelet and exactly how to manipulate him when he's at his most vulnerable. Or it's not a trap. Or it's a trap he needs to walk into anyway because the alternative, not knowing, not going, spending the rest of his life wondering if Maria somehow, impossibly, left him this message, is worse than any ambush. Charlie looks at his watch. 10:47 p.m. 73 minutes until midnight. Enough time to get to Randall's Island, not enough time to overthink this into paralysis. He tucks the gun into his waistband, grabs his keys, and leaves the apartment without bothering to turn off the lights. The bracelet stays in his pocket, pressed against his chest like a talisman. Downstairs, his driver starts to get out of the Mercedes, but Charlie waves him off. I'm driving myself tonight, he says. Take the rest of the night off. Sir, I don't think. That's an order, Wilson. The driver hesitates, then nods and hands over the keys. Charlie slides behind the wheel and pulls into traffic, heading north toward the bridge that'll take him to Randall's Island. The city passes in a blur of lights and movement, none of it registering. His entire focus has narrowed to a single point. Midnight, the iron mill, and the impossible possibility that Maria is somehow still alive. He knows it's not possible. Knows he saw the death certificate, attended the viewing, made arrangements for the burial. Knows that people don't come back from death no matter how much you want them to. But he's going anyway. Because in this moment, driving through Manhattan with a bracelet that shouldn't exist and a message written in a dead woman's hand, Charlie White would rather walk into a trap with hope than spend another night in certainty without her. The bridge approaches. Charlie accelerates, racing toward midnight and whatever revelation or destruction waits for him there. The old iron mill looms against the night sky like the skeleton of some industrial beast, all rusted girders and broken windows and walls that haven't been painted since the Reagan administration. It sits on the eastern edge of Randall's Island, technically within New York City limits but practically on its own island, accessible only by a single bridge that most people forget exists. Charlie parks the Mercedes on a gravel lot that's more weeds than gravel, kills the engine, and sits in darkness. 11:58 p.m. 2 minutes until the impossible deadline. The mill is dark except for moonlight filtering through collapsed sections of roof. No other cars in the lot, no signs of life or ambush. Just rust and silence and the distant sound of the East River flowing past. He gets out of the car, gun in hand but held low, non-threatening. The night air is cold, carrying the smell of river water and industrial decay. His footsteps crunch on gravel, then go silent as he reaches the mill's main entrance, a massive loading door that's been chained shut for years. But the chain is cut, lying in the weeds like a steel snake, the metal shiny where bolt cutters recently bit through. Someone's been here. Recently. Charlie slips inside through a gap in the door, every sense heightened. The interior is exactly as he remembers. Concrete floors cracked and sprouting weeds, machinery rusted into abstract sculptures, support columns rising into darkness. Pigeons roost in the rafters, disturbed by his presence, their wings creating echoes that sound like whispers.
Charlie.
He spins toward the voice, gun rising on instinct, and then everything he thought he knew about reality collapses. Maria steps out from behind a support column, illuminated by a shaft of moonlight that makes her look almost ethereal. She's wearing the same clothes she wore in the cemetery this morning: light blouse, dark cardigan, jeans, and she's alive, breathing, looking at him with eyes that are filled with tears and something else, something fierce and unbreakable.
"Don't shoot," she says softly. "It's me. It's really me."
Charlie's gun hand drops to his side, suddenly too heavy to hold up. His entire body has gone numb, his brain unable to process what his eyes are showing him. This is a hallucination, a grief-induced psychotic break, a cruel trick played by a mind that can't accept loss. "You're dead," he says, and his voice sounds like it's coming from someone else.
"I buried you. You buried an empty coffin."
Maria takes a step closer, moving slowly, like she's approaching a wounded animal.
"Well, not empty. But not me. This isn't possible." "No," she agrees. "It shouldn't be."
"But Vincent and I had a plan, and when Hannah poisoned me, that plan kept me alive long enough to fake my death. She's close now, close enough that he could touch her if he could make his arm move, if he could believe this is real."
"I'm sorry."
"I'm so sorry you had to go through this, had to grieve, had to think I was gone."
"But I needed them to think it worked." "Them."
Charlie's mind is starting to function again, putting pieces together.
"Kenji and Hannah."
Maria nods.
"They tried to kill me, Charlie. And they almost succeeded."
"But I heard them at the hospital, heard them celebrating, heard them planning to take everything from you while you were too broken to stop them." Her hand reaches out, touches his face, and the contact is warm and solid and impossible.
"I stayed dead so they'd show their hand. So we could destroy them properly."
Charlie's free hand comes up to cover hers, feeling the warmth of her skin, the pulse at her wrist.
"She's real. She's alive."
The grief that's been crushing him for 3 days suddenly inverts into something else, something so intense it's almost violent.
"How?" he manages.
Maria explains quickly, efficiently. The months of suspicion, the meetings with Vincent, the counteragents and emergency protocols. The poisoned tea, the injection that stopped her heart, the morgue ruse. She tells him about the Jane Doe body, about hearing Kenji and Hannah celebrate, about spending 3 days in a safe house planning while watching him destroy himself with grief she couldn't end. "The bracelet," Charlie says.
"The message. You accessed my apartment. Vincent helped me bypass your security. I needed you to know, needed to see you, but I couldn't risk it until I was sure you'd come alone, sure you wouldn't tell anyone."
She's crying now, tears streaming down her face.
"I watched you at the cemetery every morning. Watched you fall apart. It killed me, Charlie. Every day it killed me not to run to you."
Charlie pulls her against him, holding her so tightly he can feel her heartbeat through her clothes, confirming what his mind still can't fully accept.
She's alive. She's here.
The bracelet in his pocket suddenly makes sense, the message makes sense, the impossible has rearranged itself into a reality he can grab onto.
"They're going to pay," he says into her hair. "Kenji, Hannah, anyone who helped them. I'll make them pay in ways they can't imagine." "No," Maria says, pulling back to look at him. "We'll make them pay. Together. But not the way you're thinking."
She lays out her plan with a precision that reminds him why he fell in love with her in the first place. Not because she was innocent or pure or separate from his world, but because underneath the art gallery sophistication was a mind that understood strategy, understood power, understood revenge.
They'll keep her death a secret.
Let Kenji and Hannah think their plan is working, let them get comfortable and greedy and careless. Meanwhile, Maria will haunt them from the shadows, not literally, but close enough. Financial sabotage, psychological warfare, a slow dismantling of everything they're trying to build. And when they're vulnerable, when they've committed to their betrayal so thoroughly they can't walk it back, then she'll reveal herself. "We expose them in front of everyone," Maria says. "The entire organization, all your associates, every person they're trying to manipulate. We show them that you can't kill what refuses to die, and we make them understand the cost of betrayal." Charlie listens, his mind already racing ahead to logistics and tactics.
"The clan meeting. 2 weeks from now. Everyone will be there. Perfect timing."
Maria's smile is sharp, nothing innocent about it. "I'll need access to their apartments, their offices, their personal spaces. I want them afraid before they even know what they're afraid of. What do you need from me?
Keep grieving. Keep looking broken. Give them exactly what they expect to see.
She touches his face again, gentle despite the hardness in her eyes.
Can you do that?
Can you keep pretending I'm gone when I'm right here? It'll be the hardest thing he's ever done. Harder than building an empire, harder than eliminating rivals, harder than making choices that keep him up at night. But looking at Maria, at the fierce determination in her eyes, at the woman who literally came back from death to stand beside him, he knows he'll do it.
For you, he says. Anything.
They spend the next hour planning, their voices echoing in the empty mill, strategies taking shape in the darkness. When they're done, when every detail has been considered and every contingency planned for, Maria walks him back to his car.
2 weeks, she says. Then this is over. Then we're together again. Really together.
Charlie kisses her, and it feels like breathing after drowning, like color returning to a grayscale world. We were always together, Maria says.
They just didn't know it.
Charlie drives back to Manhattan, his mind clearer than it's been in days. In his rearview mirror, the iron mill fades into darkness, and with it, the man who was broken by grief.
That man is gone.
In his place is something more dangerous, a man who has nothing left to lose because he's already lost everything and gotten it back. Kenji and Hannah think they're playing chess with a grieving widow. They don't realize they're facing a king and queen who just allied in the most powerful way possible. The game, as they say, is about to change. The next 13 days are a masterclass in psychological warfare conducted by a woman the world thinks is dead. Maria moves through the city like smoke, there and gone, leaving traces that only her targets notice. She has resources Charlie provides, unlimited money, access to specialists who ask no questions, and most importantly, information. Every password, every routine, every weakness of Kenji and Hannah becomes ammunition. She starts with Kenji's finances, because money is the language men like him understand best. Maria spent years watching Charlie manage complex financial operations, learning the mechanics of money laundering and asset protection without ever admitting she was learning. Now she uses that knowledge like a scalpel. Kenji has 17 offshore accounts spread across the Cayman Islands, Singapore, and Switzerland. He thinks they're invisible, protected by layers of shell corporations and numerical accounts that can't be traced back to him.
He's wrong.
With Vincent's help and a hacker Charlie keeps on retainer for exactly this kind of work, Maria accesses 12 of them in 3 days.
She doesn't steal the money. That would be too obvious, too crude.
Instead, she moves it, small amounts at first, then larger ones, shifting funds between accounts in patterns that trigger fraud alerts. By day 5, Kenji has banks calling him about suspicious activity, his own money suddenly flagged as potentially illegal. He can't explain it without revealing that yes, these accounts exist and yes, they're filled with money skimmed from Charlie's operations.
But the real cruelty is in the details.
Maria transfers exactly $847,392 from his main Cayman account to a charity that supports survivors of poisoning. The specificity of the amount, the cruel irony of the destination, it's a message, even if Kenji doesn't fully understand it yet.
His money is no longer his. Someone else is controlling it. Someone who knows things they shouldn't.
Hannah gets a different treatment because Hannah's weakness isn't money, it's control. She's spent her entire career managing details, ensuring everything in her environment is precisely ordered. Maria decides to introduce chaos.
It starts small.
Hannah's apartment, a luxury condo in Chelsea with security that costs more than most people's rent, begins experiencing anomalies. The smart home system she controls through her phone starts malfunctioning. Lights turn on at 3 a.m. The thermostat drops to 60 degrees in the middle of the night. Her security cameras loop footage from 3 days earlier, creating gaps in the recording that she notices but can't explain.
Then the tea arrives.
Hannah finds it on her kitchen counter one morning, a package of loose-leaf tea, expensive and exotic, the exact same blend she brought to Maria 3 weeks ago. The package is wrapped in brown paper tied with white string, and there's a small card attached. No message, just a simple drawing of a willow tree. Hannah stands in her kitchen, staring at the tea, and for the first time since this whole plan began, she feels something cold move through her chest.
Fear.
Because no one should have access to her apartment.
No one should know about the tea. And that drawing, why a willow tree? Maria knows why.
Because she stood under a willow tree and watched Charlie grieve. Because Hannah will eventually realize the symbolism when everything is revealed. But for now, it's just an image that creates unease, a splinter in Hannah's carefully constructed confidence. The psychological attacks escalate. Kenji finds his car, a bulletproof BMW he uses for security, filled with funeral lilies one morning. Hundreds of them, white blooms that perfume the entire garage with the smell of death. They're arranged carefully, almost lovingly, covering every surface. On the driver's seat is a piece of paper, his own eulogy, the one he delivered at Maria's funeral, now printed out with certain phrases circled in red ink.
A life taken too soon. Her kindness will be missed. We honor her memory.
Someone was listening. Someone knows those words were lies. Someone is telling him that his performance was noted and will be judged. Hannah's apartment becomes an even stranger place. She finds small items moved, a book on a different shelf, a picture frame angled wrong, her coffee mug in a cabinet it shouldn't be in. Then the tea starts appearing everywhere. In her office desk. In her gym locker. In her car's glove compartment. Always the same type, always wrapped in brown paper with that willow tree card. She throws them away, but they keep appearing.
It's impossible, but it's happening.
Someone is stalking her with tea that killed Maria White, and the message is becoming very clear: I know what you did. By day 10, both Kenji and Hannah are visibly rattled. Charlie watches them at a strategy meeting, sees the dark circles under Hannah's eyes, notices how Kenji keeps checking his phone obsessively, monitoring accounts that are hemorrhaging money to charities and frozen by fraud investigations. You both look stressed, Charlie says, his voice heavy with grief he's no longer feeling.
This has been hard on all of us. Just tired, Hannah says quickly. Haven't been sleeping well.
Same, Kenji adds. The pressure of keeping operations running while you're dealing with everything. Charlie nods sympathetically. I appreciate you both holding things together.
I don't know what I'd do without your support.
The irony would be delicious if it weren't so dangerous. They're trying to steal his empire while he thanks them for their loyalty, completely unaware that he's watching them unravel in real time, that every strange occurrence is orchestrated by a woman they think is rotting in the ground. Maria watches the meeting remotely through a camera in Charlie's office, a small smile on her face. She's in a safe house in Brooklyn, surrounded by monitors showing feeds from Kenji's apartment, Hannah's office, and various other surveillance points. Vincent is with her, helping coordinate the next phase. The meeting is in 4 days, Vincent says.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Maria looks at him, her expression fierce. I died, Vincent. They killed me and celebrated over my corpse. Now I'm going to show them what it means to create a ghost. The final psychological attack comes on day 13. Hannah wakes up to find her entire apartment filled with the scent of the poison tea, not actual tea, but a diffused version of the scent, pumped through her HVAC system while she slept. She stumbles out of bed, gagging on the smell, throwing open windows in a panic. On her bathroom mirror, written in what looks like lipstick but doesn't smudge when she tries to wipe it, is a message: 3 days until the truth. Hannah calls Kenji in a panic, voice shaking. Someone's in my apartment. They're in my goddamn apartment, Kenji. The smell, the messages, the tea, someone knows. Calm down, Kenji says, but his voice is tight with his own fear. It's probably Charlie, trying to smoke us out. Charlie's too broken to orchestrate this.
You've seen him. He can barely function. Then who?
Neither of them wants to say what they're both thinking. What if Maria somehow knew? What if she left evidence, triggered some kind of dead man switch that's now systematically destroying them?
The thought is absurd.
Dead people don't orchestrate revenge. But the alternative, that Charlie has somehow discovered their betrayal and is playing an elaborate game, is almost as terrifying. They don't know the truth is worse than either scenario. That Maria is alive, aware, and coming for them with the kind of fury that only someone who's been murdered and survived can generate. 3 days until the clan meeting. 3 days until Maria steps out of death and into a room full of people who will witness the most complete destruction of traitors in the organization's history. Charlie ends his day with a call to Maria, speaking on a secure line that can't be traced. How are they holding up? He asks. Falling apart, Maria says with satisfaction. By the time I walk into that meeting, they'll be so paranoid they'll confess just to make the haunting stop.
I can't wait to see their faces. Neither can I, Maria says. Neither can I.
The clan meeting is held in a private room of a restaurant Charlie owns in Lower Manhattan, the kind of place that doesn't appear on maps or apps, where reservations are made through encrypted channels and the waitstaff are paid enough to forget every face they see. 15 people gather around a table of dark wood that's witnessed more criminal conspiracies than most police interrogation rooms. These are Charlie's lieutenants, his advisors, the people who run different pieces of his empire. Kenji and Hannah are there, sitting close to the head of the table, positions they've claimed through years of service that's about to be revealed as performance. Charlie arrives exactly on time, wearing a black suit that makes him look like he's attending another funeral. His face is composed but hollow, the expression of a man going through motions. The room quiets as he takes his seat. "Thank you all for coming," he says, his voice flat.
"I know this has been a difficult time. For all of us."
Murmurs of agreement, sympathetic looks. Kenji and Hannah exchange a glance that in any other context might seem supportive, but in reality is them checking with each other, confirming that Charlie still seems broken, still seems vulnerable. "I've asked you here tonight because I need to address some concerns about the organization," Charlie continues. "About loyalty, about trust, about what happens when people mistake grief for weakness." The room's energy shifts slightly. Kenji's hand tightens on his water glass. "We've had some financial irregularities," Charlie says, looking directly at Kenji. "Accounts that have been compromised, money moved without authorization."
"Do you know anything about that?"
Kenji's face remains neutral, but there's a tightness around his eyes. "I've noticed some suspicious activity as well.
I was going to bring it to your attention."
"Probably hackers, someone trying to take advantage of the situation."
"Interesting.
Because the activity started before Maria died.
Before anyone could have known I'd be distracted."
Charlie's voice hasn't changed, still that same flat tone, but there's steel underneath it now. Hannah speaks up, her voice concerned. "Charlie, I think you're seeing conspiracies that aren't there. Everyone here is loyal to you. We've all been working overtime to keep things running."
"Have you?" Charlie looks at her.
"Because I have security footage from the pharmaceutical warehouse in Newark. Shows someone matching your description purchasing Nightshade 7. That's an interesting purchase for someone who manages legitimate business fronts."
The room goes completely silent.
Hannah's face drains of color. "I don't know what you're talking about," she says, but her voice lacks conviction.
"Don't you?"
Charlie pulls out a tablet, taps it, and turns it to show footage of Hannah and Kenji meeting with the pharmaceutical dealer, the exchange of money for a small vial. "This was filmed 3 weeks before my wife died."
"Care to explain?"
Kenji stands abruptly. "This is a setup. Someone's trying to frame us, Charlie."
"You can't possibly believe."
"Sit down," Charlie says quietly, and the command in his voice makes Kenji obey instinctively.
"I'm not finished."
The lights in the room flicker once, twice, then go out completely. Emergency lighting should kick in, but it doesn't. The room is plunged into darkness, and for 5 seconds, there's nothing but breathing and the sound of chairs scraping as people stand. Then a single spotlight illuminates the doorway, and Maria steps into the light. She's wearing a crimson gown, her hair styled elegantly, her face made up like she's attending the opera instead of her own resurrection. The silver bracelet catches the light on her wrist. She looks like a queen, like a avenging angel, like everything Kenji and Hannah tried to destroy and failed. The room erupts in shocked voices, people standing, someone dropping a glass that shatters on the floor. But the loudest sound is Hannah's sharp intake of breath, a gasp that sounds like her soul leaving her body. "Hello everyone," Maria says, her voice carrying perfectly in the sudden chaos. "I apologize for my absence. I was indisposed." She walks into the room like she owns it, which in a very real sense, she does. Stops directly across from Kenji and Hannah, who are both frozen, faces white as the funeral lilies that haunted Kenji's car. "You look like you've seen a ghost," Maria says to Hannah.
"How fitting."
"This is impossible," Kenji whispers.
"You're dead. I saw the certificate. I attended the funeral."
"You attended a performance," Maria interrupts. "A very convincing one, I admit. The tears were a nice touch, Kenji.
The most made me believe you actually cared."
She turns to the room. "For those wondering, I'm very much alive, despite the best efforts of these two to poison me in my own home." Charlie stands, and now his expression is no longer hollow. It's rage, cold and controlled. Maria and I have spent the last 2 weeks gathering evidence. Financial records showing how they've been stealing from operations. Communication logs proving they planned this months in advance. And of course, security footage from the night I supposedly lost my wife. A screen descends from the ceiling, activated by a remote in Charlie's hand. Footage plays. The headstone reads, Maria White, beloved wife, rest in peace. It's a lie carved in Italian marble, installed 6 feet above an empty coffin, marking a death that never happened. Charlie stands in front of it at dawn, holding a sledgehammer he retrieved from the trunk of his Mercedes. The cemetery is deserted, the groundskeeper not yet arrived, the world still dark enough for what he needs to do. Maria stands beside him, wearing jeans and a jacket, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looks nothing like the ghost in the crimson gown from last night. She looks real, solid here. Are you sure you want to do this? She asks. Positive, Charlie says. He hefts the sledgehammer, feels the weight of it. This thing has haunted me for 2 weeks. Time to put it to rest. The first swing connects with the center of the headstone, sending cracked spider webbing across the marble. The impact reverberates through Charlie's arms, satisfying and violent. He swings again and again, each blow shattering more of the lie. Maria's name breaks first, the letters fragmenting. Then, beloved wife. Then, rest in peace. The stone crumbles under the assault, pieces falling into the grass, dust rising in the early morning light. Charlie doesn't stop until the headstone is nothing but rubble, until every trace of the lie has been destroyed. When he finally lowers the sledgehammer, breathing hard, sweat on his forehead despite the cold, the grave marker is gone. Just a blank plot of grass and scattered marble fragments. Better? Maria asks. Much better. Charlie tosses the sledgehammer aside. I hated that thing. Hated walking past it, hated knowing everyone thought you were under it. I wasn't dead, Maria says. But maybe a part of us was. The part that let people like Kenji and Hannah get close. The part that trusted too easily. That part's dead now, Charlie agrees. What we are now is something different. They stand together in the growing light, looking at the destroyed grave. Somewhere in the city, Kenji and Hannah are discovering exactly what erasure means. Accounts drained, properties seized, their names circulated through every criminal network with warnings attached. They'll spend the rest of their lives looking over their shoulders, if they're lucky enough to have lives left at all. What do we do with the plot? Maria asks. Leave it empty, Charlie says. A reminder that you can't kill what refuses to die. That some ghosts come back. They walk back to the car together, leaving the rubble behind. The sun is rising properly now, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, colors that seem to promise something better than the darkness they've been living in. I love you, Charlie says as they reach the Mercedes. I know, Maria says. That's why I came back. They drive out of the cemetery, past the iron gates, into a city that's waking up unaware that last night witnessed the resurrection of a queen and the fall of traitors who thought death was permanent. It's not. Maria is living proof. And now, together with Charlie, she's going to make sure everyone remembers that some stories don't end when you close the coffin. Some stories are just beginning. The Mercedes disappears into Manhattan traffic, carrying a king and queen who died and came back, who lost everything and reclaimed it, who proved that the most dangerous thing in the world isn't a man with nothing to lose. It's a woman who was supposed to be dead but decided to haunt the living instead. The aftermath of Maria's resurrection spreads through the criminal underworld like wildfire through dry grass. Within 48 hours, every organization from Boston to Miami knows the story. Charlie White's dead wife walked into a Klan meeting wearing red, exposed 2 traitors, and reclaimed her place beside him. The details get embellished with each retelling. Some say she glowed, others claim she had evidence of every crime Kenji and Hannah ever committed tattooed on her skin, but the core truth remains undeniable. You cannot kill Maria White. Charlie's penthouse becomes a fortress of planning in the days following the banquet. Maria has transformed the home office into a war room, walls covered with organizational charts, financial projections, and strategic maps showing their operations across 6 states. She works with the focused intensity of someone who's tasted death and decided life is too short for half measures. The vacuum Kenji and Hannah left needs to be filled, she says, pointing to gaps in their shipping network. But we fill it smart. No more giving people enough rope to hang us with. Charlie watches her from the doorway, coffee in hand, still adjusting to the reality of her presence. Sometimes he catches himself reaching for his phone to call Vincent, to confirm this isn't an elaborate grief hallucination. Then Maria will look up, smile at him with that fierce intelligence that first caught his attention years ago, and the doubt evaporates. "What are you thinking?" she asks, catching his stare. "That you're terrifying when you plan."
"Good. I want to be terrifying."
She returns to the charts. "We've been reactive for too long, Charlie. Letting people like Kenji position themselves, waiting for threats to emerge. Time to be proactive." She's right. Charlie built his empire through careful aggression, strategic strikes that eliminated competition before they became problems. But somewhere along the way, he got comfortable. Trusted people based on years of service instead of continued verification. Let sentiment cloud judgment. Maria has no such weakness. She's proposing a restructure that's ruthless in its efficiency. Smaller inner circle, rotating lieutenants who never get comfortable enough to plot, and most importantly, shared leadership that makes it impossible to exploit either of them individually. "The old model was feudal," Maria explains. "You were the king, everyone else were vassals hoping to inherit. But if we're both at the top, if every major decision requires both our signatures, both our approval, then there's no point in trying to eliminate one of us." "You've been thinking about this for a while."
"Since before they tried to kill me."
Maria's expression darkens. "I saw how Hannah looked at your operation, how Kenji talked about, when I'm running things. They weren't subtle. I just didn't realize they'd act so soon." Charlie moves to stand beside her, looking at the maps.
"What about the others?"
"The lieutenants who stayed.
We test them.
Give them opportunities to prove loyalty or reveal ambition. The ones who pass get promoted. The ones who fail get reassigned somewhere they can't do damage." She taps a name on the chart. "Wilson, for instance. Your head of security. He's loyal to a fault, never overstepped, never asked for more than his position warranted.
He gets elevated. And the ones who might be problems? We watch them carefully.
But we also give them enough success that betraying us becomes the worse option than staying loyal." Maria's smile is sharp. "Kenji and Hannah failed because they got greedy before they got powerful. We make sure anyone else with ambition understands that working with us is more profitable than working against us." It's an elegant solution, typical of Maria's approach, not just eliminate threats, but restructure the system so threats can't form in the first place. Charlie's always been good at tactics, the immediate problem, the current threat.
Maria thinks in strategy, in long-term architecture.
"When did you get so good at this?" he asks.
"I've always been good at it.
You just never asked me to help before." There's no accusation in her voice, just statement of fact. "You wanted to protect me from your world.
Keep me separate and safe. And look how well that worked." "Exactly." Maria turns to face him fully.
"I don't want protection, Charlie. I want partnership. Real partnership, where I'm not the wife you shelter but the ally you trust with everything." Charlie pulls her close, kisses her forehead.
"You have it. Whatever you want, whatever you need. We do this together."
"Good. Because I have a list of people who need to be reminded of their place." The list is 12 names long, associates who've gotten too comfortable or too ambitious during Charlie's period of grief. Maria doesn't propose killing them, that would be wasteful and send the wrong message. Instead, she's designed individual approaches for each. Financial pressure for some, exposure of secrets for others, strategic demotions that sting but don't destroy. Psychological warfare, Charlie observes. Like what you did to Kenji and Hannah.
It's more effective than violence. Dead people can't learn lessons.
Humbled people become cautious, and caution is useful. Maria marks something on the chart.
"Besides, I enjoyed it.
The haunting, the tea, watching them unravel.
There's a purity to that kind of revenge."
Charlie can't argue. He watched the footage Vincent secretly recorded of Hannah discovering tea packages in her apartment, saw the terror in her eyes as she realized someone was inside her sanctuary. It was more satisfying than any beating could have been.
"What happened to them?"
Maria asks suddenly.
"Kenji and Hannah. After we exposed them."
Charlie's expression goes cold.
"They tried to run.
Made it about 40 miles outside the city before Wilson's team caught them." They're in a warehouse in Newark now, waiting to find out what Mercy looks like.
And what does Mercy look like? That's up to you. They tried to kill you, not me. Maria considers this.
In the old dynamic, Charlie would have handled it himself, made the decision, shielded her from the darker implications. But that dynamic died when she drank poisoned tea and survived. Now she has to decide what justice means.
I want to talk to them, she says finally.
Before whatever happens next, I want them to look at me and understand exactly how badly they failed. The warehouse in Newark is one of Charlie's auxiliary properties, officially registered to a shell company that manufactures industrial supplies, actually used for situations that require privacy and soundproofing. Maria has been here once before, years ago, when Charlie was trying to decide if he should tell her the truth about his business. He'd brought her here and explained exactly what happened in places like this, giving her the choice to walk away with full knowledge of what staying would mean.
She'd stayed.
And now she's back, walking through the same metal door, her footsteps echoing on concrete floors. Kenji and Hannah are in separate rooms, a strategic choice by Charlie to prevent them from coordinating their stories or finding comfort in shared misery. Maria goes to Hannah first, pushing open the door to a bare room containing only a chair and a woman who looks nothing like the polished professional who used to handle business meetings. Hannah's hair is tangled, her makeup smeared from crying, her designer clothes rumpled. She's handcuffed to the chair, a precaution that seems unnecessary given how thoroughly she's broken, and she looks up when Maria enters with eyes full of desperate hope.
Maria, Hannah gasps. Thank God. Tell them this is a mistake. Tell them. Tell them what?
Maria interrupts, her voice ice-cold. That you didn't purchase Nightshade 7 from a dealer in Newark?
That you didn't bring me poisoned tea?
That you didn't stand in a hospital hallway and celebrate my death?
Hannah's hope crumbles. I can explain. No, you can't.
There's no explanation that makes this better, Hannah. You tried to kill me so you could steal my husband's empire.
That's not complicated. It's just evil.
You don't understand the pressure, Hannah tries, her voice cracking. Kenji said if we didn't move first, someone else would.
That Charlie was vulnerable. That this was our only chance to. Our chance.
Maria laughs, and it's a terrible sound.
You think this was about opportunity?
This was about greed and cowardice. You couldn't build your own empire, so you tried to steal one. And you thought killing me would be easy because I was just the wife, just the decoration that made Charlie feel human. She crouches down to Hannah's eye level, close enough that Hannah flinches back.
But here's what you didn't understand, Hannah. I was never just the wife. I was always more than that.
And now everyone knows it because you forced me to prove it.
What are you going to do to me?
Hannah whispers. Maria stands, brushing off her jeans.
I'm going to let you live.
Not because you deserve mercy, but because your life is worth more to me as a message than as a martyr. You're going to be released with nothing, no money, no connections, no protection. Every person in our world will know what you tried and how completely you failed. And you're going to spend the rest of your existence looking over your shoulder, wondering if today is the day I change my mind about letting you breathe.
That's worse than killing me. I know.
Maria heads for the door, pauses.
Oh, and Hannah? The tea will keep coming.
Not real poison, just packages of the same blend.
Reminders.
Every few months, you'll find one somewhere in whatever sad life you manage to scrape together.
Sweet dreams.
She leaves Hannah sobbing in the chair and moves to the next room, where Kenji waits. He's in better condition than Hannah, more composed, but there's a tremor in his hands that betrays his fear. Unlike Hannah, he doesn't beg when Maria enters. Just watches her with the wary calculation of someone trying to find an angle, a way to negotiate. You always were smarter than Hannah, Maria observes. Smart enough to know begging won't help. Smart enough to know you're not here to kill me, Kenji replies. If Charlie wanted us dead, we'd be dead already. Which means you want something else. I want you to understand something. Maria sits in the chair across from him, relaxed and confident.
You called me a weakness.
A distraction that made Charlie vulnerable. And you were right, I was.
But not anymore.
Because you came back from the dead like some kind of ghost story? Because I realized that being protected was making me powerless. Charlie kept me separate from his world, and that separation almost got me killed. So now I'm not separate.
I'm integrated. And that makes both of us stronger than either of us were alone. Kenji studies her. You've changed. I died and came back. That tends to alter your perspective. Maria leans forward. Here's what happens next, Kenji. You get the same deal as Hannah, life, but not the one you wanted. No money, no power, no seat at any table that matters. You become a cautionary tale, the man who tried to take down the Reaper and his ghost wife and got destroyed for it. And if I refuse? If I try to rebuild, come back? Then you'll discover that ghosts can be very persistent. I haunted you for 2 weeks with tea and flowers and financial manipulation. Imagine what I could do with years. Maria's smile doesn't reach her eyes. I'm patient, Kenji. And I have resources. The question is, do you want to spend the rest of your life being hunted by someone you can't kill? The calculation in Kenji's eyes shifts, and Maria sees the moment he accepts defeat. It's not surrender, men like Kenji don't surrender, but it's acknowledgement that this particular war is lost. I underestimated you, he says quietly. Everyone did. That was my advantage. Maria stands. You'll be released tomorrow morning. I suggest you leave the state. Better yet, leave the country. Start over somewhere far away from here, and pray I never have a reason to think about you again. She walks out without looking back, leaving Kenji to contemplate a future that's suddenly very small and very far from the throne he tried to steal. Charlie is waiting in the outer office, and he stands when Maria emerges. How do you feel? He asks. Complete, Maria says. Like I've closed a circle that's been open since I woke up on that morgue table. What do you want to do now? Maria takes his hand, laces their fingers together. I want to go destroy that headstone. I want to erase the last physical evidence that I was ever dead. And then I want to go home and start building the empire we're going to run together. Just like that. Just like that. They leave the warehouse together, stepping into afternoon sunlight that seems brighter than it should be. The city spreads out before them, full of operations to manage and territories to control, and people who now know that the White Organization isn't run by a man and his protected wife. It's run by a king and a queen who died and came back, who turned betrayal into resurrection, who proved that some partnerships can't be broken by poison or bullets or ambition. The cemetery is quiet when they arrive, just like it was 3 weeks ago when Charlie knelt in mud and wept over a lie. But everything is different now. Maria is beside him, alive and whole, and the grief that nearly destroyed him has transformed into something harder and more useful: purpose. The headstone still bears the scars from Charlie's earlier attack, cracked spider webbing across the marble. But it's still standing, still marking a grave that was never real. Your turn, Charlie says, offering Maria the sledgehammer he pulled from the trunk. She takes it, feels the weight. It's heavy, industrial, designed for demolition. Perfect. Any last words? Charlie asks. Maria looks at the headstone, at her own name carved in expensive stone. Rest in peace, she reads aloud. I tried. It didn't take. The first swing is pure catharsis. The sledgehammer connects with the center of the marble, and the crack that was already there splits wider, deeper. Maria swings again, and again, putting her whole body into it, channeling 3 weeks of fury and fear and the particular rage that comes from being murdered and having to watch your husband grieve. The stone fractures. Her name breaks apart, letters separating. Beloved wife, crumbles. Rest in peace, shatters into fragments that fall into the grass like snow. She doesn't stop until the headstone is rubble, until every trace of the lie has been obliterated. When she finally lowers the sledgehammer, breathing hard, her arms shaking from exertion, there's nothing left but a cleared space and scattered marble dust that catches the light like diamonds. Better? Charlie asks. Perfect. Maria drops the sledgehammer, wipes her forehead. That thing was an insult. To me, to you, to the truth. Charlie surveys the destruction with satisfaction. What do we do with the plot? Leave it empty, Maria says. But put up a new marker. Something that tells the real story. Which is? Maria thinks for a moment, then smiles. Here lies a lie. The truth survived. Cryptic. It's supposed to be. Let people wonder. Let the story spread that Maria White's grave is empty because she refused to stay dead. It's good for business. Makes us seem invincible. Charlie laughs,
genuine amusement for the first time in weeks. You're really enjoying this, aren't you? The mystique, the ghost story angle.
I earned it. Let me have fun with it.
Maria walks back toward the car, leaving the rubble behind. Besides, fear is a useful tool. If people think we're unkillable, they're less likely to try.
Fair point.
They reach the Mercedes, and Maria pauses, looking back at the destroyed grave one last time. The sun is setting, painting the cemetery in shades of gold and red, colors that seem appropriate for a resurrection. You know what the best part is, she says.
What?
Kenji and Hannah thought killing me would break you.
Make you weak and exploitable. Instead, it did the opposite.
It woke us both up to what we really are.
And what's that?
Maria turns to face him, and her expression is fierce and beautiful and absolutely certain.
Unstoppable.
She gets in the car, and Charlie follows. They drive out of the cemetery for the last time, past iron gates that have witnessed a century of grief and goodbye, into a city that's about to learn what happens when you try to bury a queen who has no intention of staying in the ground.
The story will spread. It always does.
In bars where criminals gather, in meetings where territories are divided, in whispered conversations between people who traffic in violence and power, the tale of Maria White will become legend. They'll say she died and came back wearing red. They'll say she haunted her killers until they broke. They'll say she walked into a room full of dangerous men and reminded them all that death isn't always permanent, that some ghosts carry grudges, and that the most dangerous thing in the criminal underworld isn't a man with nothing to lose. It's a woman who already lost everything and decided to take it back. The Mercedes disappears into Manhattan traffic, carrying two people who rewrote the rules about what's possible. Behind them, the cemetery holds an empty grave and a pile of rubble that used to be a lie. Ahead of them, an empire that needs running and a future that's suddenly wide open and theirs to shape. Charlie glances at Maria as he drives, sees her staring out the window with a small smile on her face, already planning their next move. She catches him looking, reaches over to take his hand. "What are you thinking?" she asks.
"That Kenji was wrong about one thing."
"What's that?" "You were never my weakness, Maria. You were always my strength. I just didn't know how to use it properly."
"And now?"
"Now we're going to show the world what happens when power meets strategy, when the throne gets occupied by two people instead of one." He brings her hand to his lips, kisses her knuckles. "Now we build something that can't be broken by ambition or poison or betrayal."
"Something permanent," Maria agrees. "Something legendary."
They drive toward their penthouse, toward the war room with its charts and plans, toward a future they'll construct together with precision and ruthlessness and the kind of partnership that comes from surviving death and deciding to haunt the living instead. The sun sets completely, and the city lights come on, millions of them, each one a small piece of the vast machine that Charlie and Maria White will run together.
Not as king and protected queen. Not as boss and sheltered wife. As equals. As partners.
As the two most dangerous people in New York, who learn the hard way that some bonds can't be broken by murder, and some resurrections change everything. The headstone is gone, destroyed by the very hands it tried to memorialize. The grave is empty, marking nothing but air and earth and the space where a lie used to live. And somewhere in the city, Kenji and Hannah are learning what it means to fail when you aim for a throne. Learning that survival isn't the same as victory. Learning that being allowed to live can be a crueler punishment than death when everyone knows you tried to kill a ghost and the ghost won. Maria White is alive.
The world knows it now. And nothing will ever be the same.
Maria and Charlie stand on the penthouse balcony that night, 60 floors above a city that's just beginning to understand what their partnership means. The lights of Manhattan spread out before them like a constellation of possibilities, each one representing territory they control, operations they've rebuilt, or people who now understand that the White organization isn't what it used to be. It's something stronger. Maria leans against the railing, the silver bracelet catching the city lights on her wrist. The same bracelet that should have been buried, that became the first clue in her resurrection, that now serves as a reminder that some things refuse to stay hidden. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if Vincent and I hadn't planned ahead?" she asks.
"If the poison had actually worked?"
Charlie moves behind her, wraps his arms around her waist.
"Every day.
And every day I'm grateful you were paranoid enough to prepare for the worst."
"Not paranoid. Realistic." Maria turns in his embrace to face him.
"I saw how people looked at you, Charlie. The hunger in their eyes, the calculations behind their smiles.
I knew eventually someone would try something. I just thought they'd come for you, not me.
They tried to break me by taking you.
Instead, they gave us both clarity.
Clarity and motivation. Maria's smile is sharp. Now when people look at us, they see something they can't touch, can't break,
can't kill. They see ghosts. They see the future.
Below them, the city continues its endless rhythm, unaware that two people on a balcony have just redefined what power looks like in their world. Not the brutal, solitary power of a man ruling through fear. Not the hidden, protected existence of someone kept separate from darkness. But partnership. Real, tested, forged in fire partnership that survived poison and betrayal and came back stronger.
What do we do tomorrow?
Charlie asks. We keep building, Maria says simply. Keep showing everyone that what we've created can't be dismantled by ambition or conspiracy.
We make ourselves legendary. We already are. Then we become mythical.
They stay on the balcony until the night grows cold, planning and dreaming and cementing the empire they'll run together. When they finally go inside, the city keeps spinning, carrying the story of Maria White's resurrection into every corner where power and darkness intersect.
The grave is empty. The headstone is destroyed. The lie is shattered.
And the truth, that some queens refuse to stay dead, that some kings know when to share the throne, that some partnerships are forged in fire and come out as steel, that truth is just beginning to spread. This is how legends start, with a woman who died and refused to accept it, with a man who turned grief into strategy, with two people who looked at betrayal and decided to weaponize it. This is how empires evolve, not through violence alone, but through resurrection, revelation, and the kind of revenge that doesn't just destroy enemies, it rewrites the rules entirely.
Maria White is alive, and the city will never forget it.
Thank you so much for watching this story of resurrection, revenge, and unbreakable partnership. If you enjoyed seeing Maria rise from the dead to reclaim her throne alongside Charlie, please hit that like button. It helps us know you want more powerful stories like this one. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next video. We have more incredible tales of justice, redemption, and unstoppable characters coming your way, and you won't want to miss a single one. Drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. I will love to say hello to you and see how far Maria and Charlie's story has reached across the world. What did you think of Maria's resurrection? Should Kenji and Hannah have gotten worse?
Let us know your thoughts.
Share this video with someone who loves stories about strong characters who refuse to be broken. Let's spread Maria's legend together. Until next time, remember, some ghosts don't haunt, they reclaim their thrones. Stay powerful, stay unstoppable, and I'll see you in the next story. Like, subscribe, comment, share.